Among Air Raiders' fleet of vehicles, mechs are arguably the most versatile. They combine firepower, durability, and adaptability into a single package, allowing them to tackle a wide variety of battlefield roles. Over the years, these machines have evolved considerably. New specializations emerged, existing roles were refined, and entirely new platforms joined the roster. Despite these changes, the core philosophy remained consistent. Let's look at how these mech archetypes evolved from EDF-4 through EDF-6, and how the devs expanded one of the class's most iconic vehicle types. Humble beginnings. EDF-4 established the groundwork for Air Raiders' mechanized arsenal through the BM-03 The Galta series. Although the roster was relatively small by modern standards, all of the battlefield roles that would define future iterations were already present. The first archetype was the general-purpose model. Equipped with a mixture of weapon types, these machines were designed to engage a wide variety of enemies without heavily specializing in any one area. Moderate mobility and balanced firepower made them adaptable platforms capable of responding to changing battlefield conditions. At the opposite end of the spectrum were the close combat variants. Armed with flamethrowers and shotguns, these mechs sacrificed versatility in favor of overwhelming short-range destruction. Enhanced mobility systems, stronger jump capabilities, and faster torso rotation allowed them to close the distance and maintain pressure once enemies entered effective range. Third, we have the heavy models. These machines exchanged mobility for raw firepower, carrying rocket cannons and dispersal mortars capable of saturating large areas with explosive damage. Their slower pace and limited freedom of movement reflected a design philosophy focused on controlling a single section of the battlefield through sheer destructive force. Additionally, there were two outlier custom models. Armed with machine guns and missile pods, their role was primarily focused on anti-air engagements and ranged support. Despite the variety of available archetypes, EDF-4's mechanized platforms often struggled to realize their intended roles. Large hitboxes, limited health pools, and sluggish handling left them vulnerable to the increasingly dangerous battlefields they were expected to operate in. Enemy damage output, engagement distances, and the sheer volume of incoming attacks frequently outpaced what these machines could reasonably withstand, particularly in online Inferno, where damage scaled dramatically. This was especially noticeable when compared to what you unlock at higher levels. Even late-game models could feel like a drag to maneuver, as well as their durability disappearing quickly under concentrated fire. Even a single gray ant is capable of inflicting significant damage before you can retaliate. As a result, the Galta mechs will often struggle to justify their presence. While the archetypes themselves were well defined, the machines lacked the survivability and responsiveness needed to consistently fulfill their intended purpose. Many players instead found greater success relying on more conventional vehicles, particularly railgun tanks, which frequently delivered more reliable results throughout difficult missions. Together, these types established the blueprint that future models would continue to follow. General purpose, close combat, and heavy assault roles would remain a part of Air Raiders' arsenal for years to come, even as the platforms themselves underwent significant redesigns and refinements. Mechs Revolution. EDF-5 marked the single largest shift in Air Raiders' mechanized fleet. Set within an entirely new continuity, the game retired the previous generation of walkers and introduced a completely redesigned family of machines, the Mechs. Although the platforms themselves were new, the roles established previously remain largely intact. General-purpose models continued to serve as adaptable frontline units. Close combat variants retained their emphasis on aggressive short-range engagements, and heavy platforms remained dedicated to strong firepower and AoE. Built around a faster and more responsive style of gameplay, these mechs could finally operate as more trustworthy frontline assets. Alongside the three core archetypes came a new model focused on explosive grenade-based weaponry called Mechs Grenadier, broadening Air Raiders' tactical options, as well as the two custom models focused on anti-air weaponry. Thanks to overall inflation in Mechs health pools in comparison to the frail Vigaltas, general-purpose platforms could remain active throughout entire engagements. Close combat variants could reliably reach enemy formations and capitalize on their short-range weaponry. Heavy models could commit to prolonged bombardments and fire off more shots before meeting its destruction if gaps between it and a target enclose too much. The changes applied to increase control reactivity for early to late game mechs, as well as increased armor values for Mechs models, resulted in a more well-rounded experience across the entire vehicle category. Mechanized platforms remained situational assets, but they had become a legitimate tool for surviving tougher missions. In many cases, mid-game machines were already outperforming what had previously been considered in-game equipment in EDF 4, creating room for later models to evolve into genuine powerhouses capable of exerting a large influence over missions, such as allowing pilots to kite fast-moving enemies and create gaps for bombing runs at a safe distance. Something far more difficult to achieve in EDF 4. Interestingly, a lot of this newfound effectiveness didn't come from increases in weapon power. Many weapon systems carried over from EDF 4 with almost identical damage values despite being different units. The real transformation came from the platforms themselves. Improved mobility and vastly increased durability allowed mechanized units to remain active for longer periods, dramatically increasing the amount of damage they could realistically deliver before being taken out. The evolution of the Mechs models didn't stop with the base game. EDF 5's DLC introduced two additional specialized variants that pushed all previous mech performance past their limits. The most notable was the Mechs Saber, the first platform in the series built around dedicated energy-based weaponry. While previous machines relied almost exclusively on conventional ballistics, the Saber introduced short-range laser armaments supported by high-output beam cannons, giving Air Raider access to an entirely different style of combat. Alongside it came the Mechs Assault, a highly mobile variant that prioritized speed and aggressive positioning like its short-range predecessors. The Assault gave way to allowing Air Raider to achieve some of the highest top speeds to the class when it came to open terrain. What began as a refinement project of existing ideas would simultaneously lay the groundwork for the next stage of the evolution in the next game. Beyond convention. With EDF 6, mech warfare has gone through its largest expansion yet. The roster grew to 27 total mech variants, though the Mechs platform remained the dominant design, accounting for 19 of those machines. When you observe the different vehicle stats of returning Mechs models as reimagined Vigaltas, the damage values had changed very little over the course of the trilogy. This highlights an important aspect of the vehicle's evolution. The developers rarely relied on dramatic damage inflation to improve mech performance. Instead, improvements came through increased durability, better mobility, greater accessibility. Alongside these returning platforms came an entirely new line of mechanized units, the Iron series. Unlike the conventional ballistic weaponry that had defined mechs throughout EDF 4 and EDF 5, Iron models were built around electromagnetic laser cannons and high-output energy weapons. The Saber from 5 basically pioneered the new line of mechs. Beyond simply offering a different visual identity, this fundamentally changed how the machines performed in combat. Laser weaponry provided exceptional long-range accuracy and consistent damage output without suffering the range-related effectiveness loss that typical guns would suffer from, allowing Iron pilots to engage threats with better precision across distances. As the Irons evolved, later variants expanded on the concept with increasingly powerful laser guns, particle cannons, and advanced energy-based homing missiles. By the endgame, players could choose between highly specialized Iron platforms focused on ranged precision or the more traditional Mechs designs that continued on with versatility and battlefield adaptability. Vehicle deployment also continued to evolve. While EDF-4's machines required 3,500 points and EDF-5 pushed in-game costs beyond 5,000 points, EDF-6's machines commonly required between 7,000 and 9,500 points. However, these higher costs were offset by a new system that partially fulfilled vehicle requests before a mission even began. Early game machines still required their full deployment cost, but increasingly advanced models arrived with portions of their request meter already completed. Mid-game machines often began with around 20 to 40% fulfilled, while some in-game platforms started with nearly half of their deployment requirement already done. Despite their higher total costs, many advanced machines could actually reach the battlefield sooner than their raw numbers would suggest. DLC once again expanded the roster with the Gravis, a heavily armed, one-of-a-kind variant equipped with powerful revolvers and grenade systems, alongside 2 additional Iron models that pushed energy-based weaponry even further. By this stage, mechanized warfare had expanded far beyond the foundations established in EDF-4, offering a level of specialization, accessibility, and presence the games had never seen before. Looking back across the series, the most impressive change wasn't the increase in firepower or durability. It was the gradual expansion of possibilities. Each game added new answers to old problems, giving Air Raider more ways to approach the same challenge. As of now, with EDF-6, players are spoilt for choice for mechs that can get the job done. Except Combat Wagon. We don't talk about the Combat Wagon.